So can we give like the high level version of exactly what not exactly, but a high level version of what it is without giving away any trade secrets, so our listeners will have a better idea if they think this could work for them?
Yes. So your listeners and or the CPAs or financial advisors that are listening to this, you might know it as a seller carryback. So all the Deferred Sales Trust is a manufactured installment sale. And it's based upon a tax code called IRC 453, which goes back to the 1920s, which basically states if like Michelle's going to sell a $10 million business and he has no basis and no debt, and Brett wanted to buy it, let's say I wanted to buy it, I could give Michelle $1 down payment and she could carry back paper. She could become the lender. Now, Michelle only pays tax on that dollar that she received, and the other amount is in what's called a tax deferral state. It's kind of like an IRA in this sense. Like if you have, money, and the government is no stranger to tax deferral. They allow it for 401ks and for IRAs and for 1031 exchanges. And it's a study of macroeconomics, which states if we can keep the money flowing and deals happening, it actually grows the economy. And someone might have a $65 million business that they started from scratch. And if they can unlock all of that capital, they could perhaps go invest into more businesses and create more jobs and more tax revenue. So it's actually a win-win for everybody. But essentially what happens at close of escrow, instead of selling, let's say, a $10 million business to Brett on a dollar, installment sale, right? We find a cash buyer for $10 million. All cash, they can get a loan, doesn't matter. And we actually form a third party, what's called a trust, a deferred sales trust with a third party trustee, which is my role, right? And we say, hey, Joe, why don't you buy it for $10 million from Michelle? But instead of putting the cash directly to Michelle and her having to pay tax on all $10 million, would you just cooperate with this trust? And so what happens is Michelle sells the $10 million business to the trust, and the trust turns around and sells it to the cash buyer. Now, Joe, the cash buyer, gets everything he bargained for, so he's gone. And what's left is Michelle owns what's called a promissory note, and she has lent the $10 million to the trust. Therefore, it's in a tax deferral state. And let's imagine it would have been a 40% tax. So instead of having $6 million, you get the full 10, right? Just kind of like an IRA. Instead of, paying all the tax and not putting it into the IRA, you can put it into the IRA and you can defer the tax. And so now over time, you'll get paid back. You became the lender, typically structured around 8% on a 10-year term, of which you can renew every 10 years. You can pass it on to your kids.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.